1.2 million people disappeared overnight, and it had nothing to do with a scandal, a strike, or even a bad performance. It happened because one 23-year-old from Iowa didn't play basketball. That's not just a drop in viewership. That's an economic black hole. And yet, if you listen to ESPN, the WNBA, and certain sports analysts, they'll tell you this year's All-Star Weekend was a historic success. They'll say ratings were up, that fans showed out, that the momentum is real. But here's what they won't say. When Caitlin Clark was ruled out of the All-Star game, the illusion shattered. Ticket prices didn't drop, they collapsed. Viewership didn't dip. It plummeted by over 1 million people, and behind the scenes, advertisers, sponsors, and even league owners started asking the same uncomfortable question. What is the WNBA without Caitlin Clark? This isn't just about basketball. This is about money, narrative control, and the kind of economic truth that sports media desperately tries to bury. So if you're ready to follow the digital breadcrumbs they don't want you to find, smash that like button, subscribe, and buckle up. Because what you're about to learn changes everything we thought we knew about women's sports economics. It happened in real time. The moment Caitlin Clark was ruled out of the 2025 WNBA All-Star game, the league felt the aftershock, not in emotions, but in economics. We're not talking about disappointment from fans. We're talking about a 48% crash in ticket prices overnight, from $121 down to $64, like a switch got flipped. One player sits, and suddenly thousands of dollars in ticket revenue vanish into thin air. That doesn't happen in stable sports leagues. Not even close. LeBron can miss a game. Steph Curry can sit out. The value dips? Maybe. But it never collapses like this. What we saw here was unprecedented. And it didn't stop with ticket prices. The broadcast numbers came in next, and the headlines tried to sell it as a win. Historic viewership, they said. But when you peel back the spin, the reality was brutal. 2.2 million viewers this year versus 3.4 million last year when Caitlin Clark played. That's 1.2 million people gone. Vanished. And here's the part nobody wants to talk about. This wasn't a one-time fluke. This was a full-scale market reaction. A financial gut punch that exposed something the WNBA has worked hard to keep hidden. Because the truth is, this league's recent rise in popularity, it's not the result of collective growth, better play, or smarter marketing. It's the Caitlin Clark effect, plain and simple. And when she's not on the court, the entire house of cards starts to shake. But that wasn't the end of it. What happened next sent an even louder message to sponsors, media partners, and players alike. While the numbers were falling off a cliff, the narrative machine went into overdrive. ESPN ran headlines calling the 2025 All-Star Weekend a historic success. ABC hyped it as a turning point for the WNBA, and social media accounts loyal to the league were pumping out carefully framed stats. Up 89% from 2023, up 158% from the previous skills contest. But did you catch the trick? Every single one of those comparisons avoided 2024, the year Caitlin Clark actually played. That wasn't a coincidence, that was strategy. Because if they had compared 2025 to last year, the truth would have been too loud to ignore. Viewership dropped 36%, ticket prices fell nearly in half, and yet they called it historic. That's not reporting, that's statistical gymnastics. It's like claiming your restaurant had the best night ever because you're comparing it to the night your lights went out, not the night you were fully booked. This is the playbook. Create a positive headline, distract with out-of-context numbers, and bury the lead. But the market didn't buy it, the fans didn't buy it, and the people inside the industry, they started talking. Because here's the real headline. When Caitlin Clark plays, the WNBA surges. When she doesn't, it sinks. This isn't a league-wide growth story. It's a spotlight trained on one player. And the deeper you look, the more obvious it gets. Because as the numbers were being spun into a success story, the financial foundation was quietly cracking underneath it all. And the cracks, they're leading straight to the one truth no one inside the league wants to admit next. Let's call it what it is. The WNBA isn't growing. Caitlin Clark is. And the league is riding her coattails as long as it can. Think about what we just witnessed. One player's absence caused a 48% drop in ticket prices. Viewership fell by over 1 million people. Sponsors started asking tough questions. The secondary ticket market collapsed. That's not normal. That's economic gravity. And all of it is being pulled toward a single point, Caitlin Clark. You don't see that with other athletes. When LeBron sits out, the Lakers don't become irrelevant. When Steph Curry's injured, Golden State doesn't vanish from primetime. But when Caitlin Clark misses a game, the entire league's value takes a hit. She's not just a rising star, she's the economic engine. Merch sales skyrocketed the moment she was drafted. Media coverage, every outlet from ESPN to TMZ suddenly cared about the WNBA because of her. Social engagement, her highlights rack up more views in 24 hours than some teams do all season. And here's the craziest part. Even when she doesn't play, the league still gets a boost just from the buzz about her absence. That's not a player, that's a market force. But while the league benefits, it refuses to admit what's obvious to everyone else. Without Caitlin Clark, there is no current WNBA boom. And yet, instead of embracing that, they're trying to downplay it, spread the spotlight, pretend this momentum is organic, pretend it's even evenly distributed. But the receipts say otherwise. This isn't a rising tide lifting all boats. It's one boat dragging the league. And nobody wants to say it out loud. But here's where the illusion starts to fall apart, because while the league quietly profits from Clark's impact, the public messaging tells a very different story. And that disconnect, it's about to get exposed in the most ironic way possible. As the economic fallout from Caitlin Clark's absence became impossible to ignore, the media narrative quickly shifted from reporting the truth to carefully shaping a distraction. ESPN and other outlets rushed to publish glowing headlines celebrating the 2025 All-Star Weekend as a historic win. Most watched skills contest ever, they claim, pointing to an 89% increase in viewership, but only compared to 2023, conveniently skipping over 2024, the year Clark actually played. Why? Because comparing 2025 to 2024 would have revealed a 36% ratings collapse, exposing a narrative-crushing truth. Without Clark, the league's growth wasn't just stalling, it was reversing. Behind those headlines, however, panic was spreading. Industry insiders began whispering that media rights deals, sponsorship agreements, and even long-term investor confidence were all riding on projections that assumed Clark-level engagement would continue. With her sidelined, those assumptions crumbled. Yet instead of addressing the issue head-on, the WNBA and its media partners resorted to statistical sleight of hand, selective comparisons, cherry-picked metrics, and glowing press releases that painted a false picture of progress. But fans and analysts weren't fooled. The harder the league tried to bury the impact of Clark's absence, the louder the truth became. And while the spin played out in headlines, something even more revealing was about to happen on the court, because the players were about to make a statement of their own, and it couldn't have come at a worse time. As the league scrambled to control the narrative, WNBA players stepped onto the court wearing bold, black t-shirts that read, "Pay us what you owe us." It was a powerful visual intended to demand fair compensation, recognition, and respect. But the timing? It couldn't have been worse, because right as those shirts were grabbing headlines, the cold, hard numbers were telling a different story. Ticket prices had crashed 48%, viewership had plunged by over 1 million, and the league's most marketable star, the economic engine behind all that growth, wasn't even playing. It created a jarring contradiction. Players were demanding higher pay at the exact moment the market was demonstrating that without Clark, the league's value wasn't rising, it was shrinking. This wasn't just a PR mismatch, it was a full-on reality check. The protest message, deserved in theory, clashed directly with what sponsors, advertisers, and fans were actually seeing in real time. It raised an uncomfortable question. What does the league truly owe when its audience disappears the moment one player isn't in the lineup? The shirts were supposed to amplify the league's value. Instead, they unintentionally spotlighted just how dependent that value had become on a single person. And just like that, the story shifted from empowerment to exposure. Because in trying to demand more, the players had also revealed how fragile their leverage really was. Behind closed doors, the WNBA is bracing for one of its most high-stakes negotiations yet, the upcoming collective bargaining agreement, CBA. Players are demanding higher salaries, better revenue sharing, and improved working conditions, demands that would normally be the starting point for any league experiencing a surge in attention and commercial interest. But there's a problem. The surge isn't collective, it's concentrated, and everyone in the room knows it. Traditionally, bargaining power is spread among veteran stars, team leaders, and union representatives. But this time, the numbers have shifted the balance, because when one rookie's absence causes a massive drop in ratings, attendance, and secondary market value, the question becomes unavoidable. Who really holds the leverage now? Caitlin Clark may be new, but the market treats her like a 10-year franchise cornerstone. That makes her more than just a player. It makes her a negotiating asset. And while the league continues to preach equality and collective progress, the economics are doing something very different. They're centralizing power around one individual. That dynamic doesn't just make negotiations awkward, it makes them fragile. Because when one person drives the revenue and the rest of the league demands a larger cut, the pie doesn't get bigger. It starts splitting in uncomfortable directions. The WNBA is standing on a financial fault line, and Caitlin Clark is the only thing keeping it from cracking wide open. Or right now, the league is trying to pull off an impossible balancing act, benefit from her popularity while pretending it doesn't define them. They want to sell the story that this growth is league-wide, that it's the result of years of hard work and slow progress. But the numbers don't support that. The market doesn't support that. And every time Clark doesn't play, the illusion breaks a little more. Here's the uncomfortable truth. This model isn't sustainable. You can't build an entire league's momentum, media coverage, and revenue projections around one player, and then simultaneously work to downplay her role in it all. It's not just hypocritical, it's bad business. Because what happens if Clark gets injured, or walks away, or simply refuses to carry the burden anymore? Suddenly, your entire growth narrative, TV deals, sponsorships, merchandise pipelines, evaporates overnight. That's not a future. That's a house of cards. And the league knows this, even if it won't say it. Sponsors are watching. Media partners are nervous. Investors are asking hard questions. Because at some point, everyone involved will have to face reality. The WNBA's current rise isn't structural, it's situational. And no situation built around one person, not in sports, not in business, not in anything, can last forever without collapse. Let's strip away the spin, the protest slogans, and the press releases, and just look at what the market is actually telling us. The ticket price crash? That's confirmed. Verified by multiple sports business outlets. Prices didn't just drop. They plummeted by 48% 38% the moment Caitlin Clark was ruled out. The viewership collapse? That's not opinion, it's Nielsen data. The 2025 All-Star Game lost 1.2 million viewers compared to the same event just 1 year earlier when Clark played. The advertiser pullback? Industry insiders have reported sponsors are now reevaluating their long-term commitments, especially if the league's audience proves this volatile without its most bankable star. These aren't cherry-picked numbers, they're red flags. But here's where it gets even more revealing. While the financial metrics scream dependency, the online conversation is starting to uncover a second layer of tension. There are unconfirmed reports, and yes, we'll call them what they are, rumors that certain team owners are growing uneasy with how exposed the league is without Clark. Whispers that the league's projected growth numbers, the same ones tied to lucrative media rights deals, may need adjustment if this kind of audience drop becomes a trend. And that's the part no one wants to hear. Because if those projections are wrong, the financial model falls apart. Here's what all the signals point to. This is no longer about equal representation, collective momentum, or growing the game evenly. The data doesn't support that dream, not yet. What the numbers are saying over and over again is this: Caitlin Clark isn't just part of the league's growth, she is the growth. Remove her, and what's left looks eerily similar to what the WNBA was before she arrived. A niche league fighting for relevance, struggling to fill seats, and hoping someone would finally care. And that brutal clarity, it's forcing everyone, players, owners, networks, and fans, to ask a question they never expected to face. Can this league survive without her? So here we are, at the edge of a truth the league has tried to tiptoe around. Caitlin Clark's absence didn't just cost the WNBA a few headlines or a bad ratings week. It ripped the mask off a fragile business model and exposed a truth that can't be ignored anymore. This league's financial future isn't being written by a collective, it's being carried by one person. And that truth, it terrifies the people in charge. Because once you acknowledge that one player holds this much influence, everything changes. The message of all ships rising starts to crack. The collective bargaining rhetoric hits a wall. And suddenly all those slogans, those t-shirts, and those PR campaigns, they feel disconnected from the reality playing out in real time. This isn't a hit piece on the WNBA. It's not even a knock on the other players. It's a wake-up call. You can't demand higher salaries, new TV deals, and major investments while pretending the engine driving all of that isn't Caitlin Clark. That's not how economics works. That's not how markets work. And no amount of narrative spin will change that. So where does this go? The WNBA has 3 choices. 1, embrace the Clark effect and build around it openly. 2, diversify its audience and talent market before it's too late. 3, or continue pretending this isn't happening and watch the cracks widen every time she sits out. Option 3 isn't just delusional, it's dangerous. Because the next time Clark misses a game, the market won't be any kinder. It'll be louder, and the warning signs won't be subtle. So what do you think? Are we watching a league on the verge of something great or something unsustainable? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have the conversation no one else wants to start. And if this breakdown opened your eyes to what's really going on behind the scenes, smash that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned. Because the next chapter in the WNBA's economic story is already being written. And trust me, it's going to be impossible to ignore.